Welcome everyone, it's been a long while since I did that, and hello to the Pitchside Podcast, a new episode. I'm your host HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, as usual, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you for the 1.4k subscribers. Hopefully we get the 2k pretty soon. Of course, follow us on social media and turn notifications on for all the updates on the channel and all the content, including these episodes which you can listen to on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other listening platform. And hello again, you're welcome. It's really been a long while since I did that. I miss doing that, and let's go. And of course, we're talking some UEFA Champions League semi-final second legs, of course, and we have to start from the Santiago Bernabeu. We have to start from the Real Madrid-Manchester City game, simply because the scenario is just too crazy. The script of this game is just too crazy to believe. Real Madrid entered this game not as underdogs per se, but I think as, let's say, 60-40 against them to qualify, really, considering the result of the first leg, the quality of City, the struggles of Real Madrid. Let's be real, they had problems before in the last two knockout stages against PSG and Chelsea. They survived those, and everybody thought maybe City is a bit too much for them, maybe they will not survive that. And for 90 minutes, to be fair, they didn't do that, literally for 90 minutes. Real Madrid entered this game with no Alaba, of course. Casemiro was back, so that was a plus. They played a 4-4-2 kind of to start to try and close down the flanks and not allow a lot of movement for the midfielders for Manchester City. They started with Valverde on the right instead of having a proper winger, which it did its job defensively for the most part, I suppose, but for the offensive part of the job, it didn't really do much. Valverde didn't really add up front, and that's, I think, where the money came from in the substitution when Valverde was off and Rodrigo was on, and we'll get to that in a bit. You have City, who returned to their full form after missing Walker and Cancelo for the first leg. Of course, Walker for injury, went down injured again later on, and Cancelo for suspension. And the game started the way people expected it to start, really. Real Madrid trying to, press a little bit, trying to be different from the first leg. The most important thing for them probably was not to concede in the first 20 minutes, of course, when they were trying to press and were going high and trying to score, the early goal and trying to lead the game. The most important thing was not leave spaces, not leave any kind of opportunity for Mahrez, for De Bruyne, for Bernardo Silva, for Phil Foden to move behind them and score the goal. There was I would say there was four big axes in this game that defined, I think, how this game went. The first, in my opinion, was Casemiro not being sent off. And again, this is not a slight on Real Madrid. This is not hate on Madrid. This is not trying to, steal their meritocracy of qualifying or anything. It's just a fact that Casemiro should have been sent off. Okay, I can understand that it might be hypothetical. What one could tell me, and I really saw that on social media. I posted a tweet about that, and someone said to me it might be hypothetical. Who told you that if Casemiro made the first mistake and get booked, why would he do the second mistake and get sent off? And although I believe that Casemiro is not exactly a game management kind of player, I don't think he's exactly the type of player that would get booking and would look at himself and say, you know what, I manage the game from here on in. I think it quite makes sense, really. In the end, I get convinced with this opinion. It's really hypothetical. Maybe if he didn't make the first mistake, he wouldn't make the second. That's my opinion. The first big axis of the game. The one on De Bruyne, deserved a yellow, probably. The one on Foden, maybe. Some referees saw he would give it, some referees don't. But I think the one on De Bruyne probably deserved a yellow card, and the referee really, really was lenient. Danilo Orsato, the referee, was lenient overall. Like, in general, he was lenient in the game, which was weird for an Italian referee. But I think overall, that's one of the biggest points, I think, of the game. I mean, they shouldn't make a big deal of it because you know what, it's not about that anymore. But in the grand scheme of things, it's one of those things where maybe if it happened, things would have changed. The second axis, in my opinion, is the substitutions for Guardiola. I think that is an absolute crucial point of the game. I mean, when City were leading 1-0, when they just scored the goal 15 minutes before the game, remember? And before that, he took off De Bruyne, which was crazy enough. After the goal, he took off Mahrez, and I don't want to say this, but I think Guardiola didn't watch the Real Madrid games from the last two knockout stages. I don't think he watched them. I mean, obviously it's sarcastic. He surely did, but it looks like he didn't watch him. He didn't learn the lesson that Tuchel and Pochettino before him didn't learn. They didn't kill off Real Madrid, and 1-0 would have been enough if Manchester City kept the ball, if they managed the game really well, they knew what to do after the goal. Because in the moments where they were dominating the game, which were, let's be fair, which were really rare, like the periods where City were absolutely dominating the game were pretty rare in comparison to the first leg where they, had the majority of the game for themselves. Real Madrid were better, in the second half in particular were better. And, the substitutions were unexplainable in my opinion. Why you would take off Mahrez and De Bruyne, considering that Real Madrid could come back. I mean, listen, Guardiola could do this against any team in the world and he would be fine. But not against Real Madrid, a side that showed us this season. Like, it's not about last season or the last two seasons. This season, the last two knockout stages matches, he showed us a side that showed us that they can hurt you, they can score late, they can score 2 goals late and 3 goals late, and they can make it, and they can really, feed off the energy of the crowd in the Santiago Bernabeu, who really, I'm sure that some of them left the stadium after the goal of Riyad Mahrez and thought, you know what, this is one too much, and we're out of the Champions League. But again, this transitions us and leads us nicely to the third point, the third axis in my opinion, which is the substitution of Rodrigo. Listen, not even the others. I don't care about Camavinga coming in. I mean, Cruz already had a bad game, really. I thought he was having a bad season overall, considering his standards. But, Camavinga should have started since the beginning. That's, I think, something that I don't really want to debate. But the fact is, the substitution of Rodrigo is the biggest point, is indeed the biggest turnaround. Because that changed a lot. That gave City, or that gave Real Madrid, the opportunity to attack down the right hand side, which they didn't do often. Not that they didn't do often, but they didn't have the power to do so because Carvajal was pretty much attacking on his own in that area. Valverde was mostly about supporting the midfield, about not allowing the likes of De Bruyne and Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva to move on the right hand side and try to create spaces and overloads on that right hand side, which was a smart tactic by Ancelotti for once. And then Rodrigo came in and he attacked that right hand side and he was effective. And he was the biggest contributor, I think, in this comeback. People would talk about Benzema, obviously, because his season has been so good. But I think Rodrigo deserves a mention in this one. Rodrigo deserves, to be talked about in the same vein as Benzema in this game at the very least. He's so effective. And he's been a super sub for Real Madrid, pretty much. He's been a turnaround in almost every game. Against Chelsea, he did so. Against, PSG, he did so. In La Liga, he did it so many times. And somehow it still baffles my mind that this guy has been in Real Madrid for 4 years now. Believe it or not, he came in with Vinicius at the same period. Yet, he's not a starter, while Vinicius is a starter. I mean, with this game doesn't really show Ancelotti that this guy is the man on the right hand side and you need to start him every game. I don't know what he would do really. Anyway, Real Madrid deserved their victory, deserved their qualification. City shot themselves in the foot, not necessarily by a mistake made by Guardiola in terms of tactics, but I think the substitutions were timed wrongly. I suppose, like, if you did those substitutions, if you're leading 1-0 in the 93rd and 94th minute, I can understand that. You take those players off, and you waste some time, and you just see off the game. But they managed to take the game to the extra time, Real Madrid, and that's where they hurt City the most. City were deflated, I felt, and with no De Bruyne and Mahrez, most of their attacking power really went away. And there's a big point in the game, in my opinion, where Grealish came on for Foden, and that was a mistake, because Foden, I mean, as good as Grealish can be, Foden was better on that left-hand side because it provided at least something effective. Grealish came in, missed 3 chances, and he effectively allowed Real Madrid a way back in this game. One of those chances really was Mendy getting the ball off the line, which might be the biggest moment of the game if you are Real Madrid. And of course, the fourth axis that I really think was the most important of the game is Walker being injured, and that, injury substitutions for Zinchenko, because that changed everything, and that allowed Rodrigo to work over someone like Zinchenko, who's not as good defensively as Joao Cancelo could be. Someone who's easier to track than Joao Cancelo, because Joao Cancelo has much better pace, much better skills, I think, than Zinchenko, and that eased the job for Rodrigo, who really worked on that right-hand side of Real Madrid. Scored 2 goals. Benzema came in with a penalty in the extra time, and that's what she wrote. Real Madrid are in the final of the Champions League deservedly. The toughest path to the Champions League final ever for them, probably, and probably one of the toughest paths to the Champions League ever in general, because you were down on your knees 3 times. You were out of the Champions League 3 times in the knockout stages, and then you make a comeback in the Bernabeu, and you make a crazy scenario once again. Real Madrid, absolutely hats off for them for this season. Maybe they're not as good as a team as you would think City are, or Liverpool that would meet them in the final are, but I think overall it's a side that lives and dies on Champions League legacy, lives and dies on Champions League heritage and DNA. And the 2 games that they had between the first leg and the second leg with City are some of the absolute best football you could ever see this season. Real Madrid's Champions League games this season in the Bernabeu were absolutely phenomenal. I would never forget them, really, because there were some crazy scenarios in those. Congratulations for Real Madrid. And they're looking for the 14th trophy in the Champions League. That's ridiculous. That is bonkers when you consider that Liverpool, on the other hand, are looking only for their 7th trophy in the Champions League cabinet. And that takes us, of course, to talk about Liverpool or Villareal versus Liverpool, the second leg of the other semi-final, of course. And maybe there's not much to talk about in this leg compared to the Real Madrid City game. But still, this match had enough crazy scenario really to warrant, its own great status, I think. Villareal entered this game with, little expectations. I'm not going to say 0 expectations, but little expectations. Yes, the crowd might have believed in that, the capacity crowd of the La Ceramica maybe believed in Villareal, and maybe a lot of people believed in Villareal, but not exactly to the point where you could actually see them turn things around against Liverpool, but they almost did in that first half. They absolutely turned it around in the first half, 2-0. They were leading at half-time. Liverpool, that was the worst first half they ever played this season, undoubtedly, because they were absolutely off, didn't create anything. There's this unbelievable story coming out of the game, saying that at halftime, Jurgen Klopp went to his analysts and was looking for a good action in the first half to try and build on the second half, but his analysts said no, didn't have anything to build on in the second half, and that was real. They didn't do anything significant in the first half. They conceded early, and the spaces behind the defence, behind the high line, were really apparent, I think, for Villareal to capitalise on. They played much higher than the first leg. They played much intense in the first leg. They had much pressing in the first leg, particularly in the first half, and that would have been their own downfall, because they exhausted themselves, they spent their energy, and by the time the second half came around, it didn't look like Villareal had enough legs to continue. The quality, maybe the endurance is not exactly, similar to some of the players that Liverpool has. Liverpool coming in with the energy in the second half, coming in with Luis Diaz in the second half, being absolutely the man. In the game, turning things around, creating much more space and dynamic down that right hand side. Sadio Mane moving in centrally. For the first 15 minutes of the second half, it didn't really work, and it looked like Villareal might lead the game where they wanted to be, to extra time, to exhaust Liverpool, to frustrate them, to force them into rash decisions. But I think the first time they found the proper space behind Villareal's defence, despite the high line, Liverpool didn't find that space. But the first time they did, Fabinho scored, and that is going to take me to talk about Geronimo Rulli for a bit, the goalkeeper of Villareal, who I would say received a lot of abuse on social media. Received a lot of negative comments. Yes, he might be on the blame for the 3 goals, not just one of them, but the 3 goals really might be his fault. And he might be the one to blame, realistically speaking. But maybe the first 2 goals, realistically speaking, are 70% his mistake or 70% his fault, because he could have dealt better, absolutely could have dealt better with the 2 goals, with the 2 first goals. The shot from Fabinho is as good as it might be. It's pretty savable because it's straight down his ankle and straight into his body, so it might be a little bit savable if he adjusted his body a little bit. The second goal is the same. The header was straightforward at him. The third goal, is 50-50. The third goal, any goalkeeper in the world could have been outdone by Mane. Neuer himself was outdone by Mane a couple of years ago in the Allianz Arena. He was rolled around by Sadio Mane in the Allianz Arena, so it's 50-50 in my opinion. I can't really blame him for the third goal, but the first 2 goals, pretty savable, and he can take the blame, but without really trying to abuse him or not give him his right. He was good last season. He was good this season in Champions League in the path that they had for the semi-final. It's just that maybe his confidence was shaken a little bit after his performance in the first leg. So yeah, that might work against him. For Liverpool, there's not a lot to say. They were bad in the first half. They make changes in the second half. Diaz comes in. He improves the game. Liverpool become more intense. They play a little bit more high. They pin Villareal in their defence, and that allows the midfield to control the game. That allows Thiago to see some passes that he didn't do in the first half, because he lost the ball a lot in the first half. Fabinho lost the ball a lot in the first half. Liverpool were not transitioning well up front. They did that in the second half. They scored the 3 goals. They won the game. Fair and square. Villareal did good in the second half, but their legs betrayed them in the second, and it was about time, I think, Liverpool turned things around in that game, because it felt that the more Villareal cave in defensively, the more chances Liverpool would have to score. If they took it to extra time, who knows how the game could have gone. But realistically speaking, Liverpool deserved their win on the second half performance. The quality just shone through in that second half, and again, Luis Diaz is the man in that game. Congratulations for Liverpool. They will meet Real Madrid in the final on the 28th of May, and Mo Salah got his wish. He's going to face Real Madrid in the final, and it would be absolutely interesting to see how that final goes, because with the crazy scenarios that we saw from Real Madrid, how they're going to deal with Liverpool. Liverpool had a pretty easy path still to the Champions League final compared to Real Madrid. Is Liverpool going to be the team too much for them, or are we going to see the 14th title for Real Madrid? The 14th for Real Madrid or the 7th for Liverpool? We will see on 28th of May. I really want to say for Mo Salah and for Liverpool, be careful what you wish for, because realistically speaking, Real Madrid enter this game now as favourites, considering that they are in the final of the Champions League. It's their 17th final in the history of the competition. For Liverpool, it's the 10th, and these are just great numbers from those two teams. It's definitely will be a great final regardless. Maybe most people wanted Liverpool versus City for the pure football factor of it, but I think what we're getting is, I'm not going to say much better, but also much more grandiose, I suppose, in Liverpool versus Real Madrid. so much football heritage, so much lineage, so much legacy of a Champions League competition between these two sides to play for. Congratulations for Liverpool, and we'll see them in the final on the 28th of May against Real Madrid. It will be great, and I'm surely excited for it. Let's finish by talking about the Europa League, and it's the second leg semi-final, of course, of this competition. The West Ham are going to be travelling to Germany to face Eintracht Frankfurt, and it will be one of the it'll be a really interesting game between the English side and the German side. The German side have been absolutely terrific in this Europa League competition. Beating Barcelona away from home is probably their biggest win in their history, in my opinion. 3-2 at the Camp Nou. They get into this game as favourites. They did the same against West Ham. They beat them 2-1. And then now they're heading into this game at home in Frankfurt with the support of that crazy crowd that travelled with them to England and to Spain. Of course, they invaded the Camp Nou basically, and with the support of that crazy crowd, they will face West Ham. They enter as favourites, in my opinion. They can't be anything but favourites. West Ham, they beat Lyon 3-0 away from home, so you can't be surprised if they beat Frankfurt away from home. But I think this is a much harder task considering West Ham's current form, considering that they are pretty wrapped up in a battle, not exactly for the top four, but to keep themselves in European spots, because it looks like the top four in England is between Tottenham and Arsenal as far as battling is concerned. So it looks like they're going to be putting all of their baskets in the Europa League. So that might be something that they want to focus on. The game is not going to be easy at all. I mean, West Ham's form has been not really that good as of late. Frankfurt's form has not been good as of late, but in the Europa League they somehow managed to turn it around, and it's going to be an absolute wonderful game in the Commerzbank Arena, looking for the qualification to the final. And Frankfurt will be looking to face either Leipzig or Rangers. I prefer to be a full German final. That would be much, much exciting. RB Leipzig will face Rangers in the second leg, of course. Rangers or Leipzig managed to beat Rangers only 1-0 in the first leg, which is not exactly 2-0, which is not the safest of leads heading into the second leg. I mean, considering that Borussia Dortmund lost 4-2 in Scotland, that doesn't exactly scream safety for Leipzig. But still, I believe that Leipzig have enough to finish the job. Nkunku has been in great form. They absolutely improved Domenico Tedesco, and they're really, really going to finish the season in strong style in the Bundesliga. So it looks like the Europa League might be their chance as well. They have the Champions League places anyway, so the Europa League is going to be another trophy to play for. They still have the cup final, of course, and it will be a real interesting situation to look forward to that game, and to hopefully see an all-German final. That's what I want, really, and those are my predictions. Frankfurt and Leipzig will be in the final, and it will be an all-German final in the Europa League. It's going to be it's going to be absolutely amazing fun, in my opinion. It's going to be very, very exciting, and we'll see some lot of football if that happens, of course. But I hold my horses, and I will see where these games are going to go tonight. That's it for the episode. Thanks for listening / watching. I was with HAD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications, turn notifications on to receive all the updates and the videos from this channel, and of course follow us on social media and listen on any podcast listening platform. And until tomorrow's weekend preview, hopefully, I'm your boys HAD of the PSP, and goodbye.